Welcome to Problem Solved, the podcast where me and a special co-host solve all your problems really easily, probably.
Problems? Are you kidding me? I don't have any problems. Okay, I might have a few, but I can work on them with you. Come on.
Welcome to Problem Solved. I am Jeff Gunther, licensed professional counselor. So happy you're here. Today, I'm talking to Danielle LaSusa. She's been on a couple times before, and I keep on inviting her on because everybody loves the episodes that she's on. Today, what's better? A really strong, confident sense of self, knowing who you are and feeling really proud of that, accepting all of your flaws and imperfections and wonderful, beautiful, positive things? Or is it better to practice non-attachment from your personality, ego death? Well, me and Danielle get into it, and I think that you're going to go on a really interesting journey, as always. I'm going to get out of the way so that you can listen to the podcast, but first, I'm going to encourage you to buy my book, Big Dating Energy. It's out now, and leave a 5-star review for this podcast. I'd love it if you did. Okay, here we go. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Jeff.
How's it going?
So good. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm glad that you're back and we're chatting again.
Me too.
Yeah, these episodes are always people's favorite episodes.
Really?
So that's why I got you coming back.
Oh, well, that's so nice. Thank you.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And today, we don't have a caller calling in. We just thought that we would talk about a certain topic where we are comparing. I want to frame it as what's better, but that's just me being polarizing.
Yeah. It's the American way.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking about the difference or how both things can coexist, or maybe what's better, to have a real strong sense of self, which I feel is a little bit more of what the therapy community does for their clients, versus I don't know, you said weaker or maybe softer sense of self. I'm not sure we have the right language for the other side. How would you describe it?
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe I'll just talk about it in terms of my experience sometimes working with clients around this idea, that is sort of a Buddhist or a spiritual idea that we will achieve more peace and happiness if we can sort of not feel so damn important all the time, and kind of, it's as the tech bros say, it's ego death. We're we're all trying to achieve ego death as our way of being in the world. Mm-hmm. And if we do that, then we will achieve some sort of spiritual enlightenment or peace and harmony and liberation. But it's sometimes in working with clients, and I make the suggestion of well, maybe, this sense of self that you're working so hard to maintain is actually kind of exhausting and not serving you. And the less you care about yourself per se, the better off you'll be. And sometimes I get the feedback of but I'm just trying so hard to say that I matter and to, affirm my needs and affirm my sense of self. This feels like you're wanting me to deny all of them. Mm-hmm. And so it just made me wonder, you as a therapist, me as a philosopher, what this conversation would be like if we were to talk about this.
Mm-hmm. And, before we even dive into it, there's so many different types of therapists out there with tons of different interventions. And some of them would be yes, let's practice non-attachment from the self. Ego death is the way to go. It's so punk rock and healing. And then on the other side, there's how do we affirm your identity? How can you have a very strong sense of self so that you can know what you want, step into your authenticity, create those boundaries? Your feelings and emotional experience matters, right. Which feels very therapy, Jeff. Yeah. I think a lot of my content is you matter and you're important and you're special, right. And you should feel like you're in relationships where you feel chosen and you're understood and heard and you're able to communicate what you really want. And in order to do that, you have to really step into who you are and be congruent and in alignment. Ugh, this is such jargony. Is this what I really say, Danielle? I think that is. Ugh.
Well, I mean, okay, so but I think that like the reason you say all of those things, right? The reason it's like no, you need to affirm yourself and draw boundaries and protect yourself, blah blah blah, is because so many of us grow up with this story about ourselves as being unimportant or being not
Right.
valuable or being
Right.
not worthy, or we have a sense of self. It's just that the sense of self that we have is that we're all pieces of shit,
Mhm.
right? And so it seems like one way, or maybe even, I don't know, maybe one step in the process of like self-actualization is moving from a story that I'm a piece of shit to I'm not a piece of shit. I'm worthwhile. I matter. My needs matter. It's worth communicating them. It's worth, being in relationships where those needs are respected and met and so forth. And I agree, all of that is really, really important, and it's great that we're teaching people that, and you're teaching people how to
Mhm.
do that, and that's important. At the same time, I think that you can sometimes get stuck there, and sometimes people are so they have felt so unimportant for so long that they can just be like boundaries, and like really kind of get to the point where they're holding on to a sense of self so tightly that it actually ends up being kind of counterproductive.
Mhm.
Because the Buddhist, and this is just sort of my understanding of Buddhist philosophy, perspective is like, actually, you don't matter. Like, I mean, you matter as much as anyone else matters,
Mm.
and anything else matters. Any like living being, we're all kind of equally matter. And so that does not sit well, I think, with the kind of like American individual like specialness idea that sometimes gets wrapped up with this like you matter conversation. And I think that in the end, I mean, Buddhists would say the attachment to that sense of self as being separate, as being really important, as being worth protecting at all costs is actually going to lead to a lot of suffering.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah, I think you're okay. So let's back up just a little bit because I think that's correct. Where um, when we grow up and we're ripped from the void of wherever we come from, and I didn't even fucking ask to be here, mom and dad. Uh, and all of a sudden now I'm not feeling as important or as valid or as special or as protected, or I'm not getting the attention and love that I want to get. And usually in our childhood, what typically happens is if we're not getting our needs met, which there's no way we can get all of our needs met, we
Right.
understand. So, but when that happens, we typically blame ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not smart enough, I'm not funny enough, I'm not athletic enough, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just sort of how the child's brain operates and works and understands the world. And then we typically grow up into our teenage selves and adulthood, still with all of those neural pathways that were set a long time ago. Really worry, lots of fears connected to I'm not good enough or I'm not whatever, I'm not enough for whatever reason. And I think that one of the greatest things, one of the most special things about going to therapy is that your therapist loves you.
Yeah.
Are you paying for their love? Of course you are. No, you're not. Actually, you're paying for their time. It's up to them if they want to love you and give you compassion. But it's such a healing relationship, and oftentimes we call the therapy relationship you're being reparented,
Right.
basically. And so there's a lot of empowerment that can come from that relationship, whether it's with a therapist or a mentor or a boss or best friend or a partner, whatever it is. You start to feel like you really do matter. And maybe I've talked to you about this or on this podcast, but there was some of the negative feedback I got with Therapy Jeff videos early on was Therapy Jeff is a toxic validator. He's validating everybody's emotions, and not everybody's emotions should be valid.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that was coming mostly from Therapy Jeff, you're validating the bad behavior of my toxic ex-partner.
Right.
You should validate me and you shouldn't validate them,
Right.
is kind of where that came from.
Right.
But I think my work as a therapist, my work as Therapy Jeff is typically helping people get in touch with who they are, because and that they matter, because they feel like they don't matter from their childhood, like you outlined.
Yeah.
And like I'm validating. Isn't it nice that you
Yeah.
you feel like you matter, your opinion matters in here, and that
Always.
I
Yeah.
respect you
Yes, it
and
is.
you're
Yeah.
important
Yes.
to me. Hmm.
It is. Yeah. And I think that, I'm not arguing that any of that is wrong, right? Like, I
Right.
think that that is definitely a process that we all deserve to go through. I, um, I do think though that even like often that idea of you mattering can be like the question is like where does that come from, right? A lot of times when I imagine this is true for you with clients and it is for me, it's like when I suggest like maybe there is a source of your worthiness that has nothing to do with like what people say to you, external validation, your achievements, how many gold stars you get, what promotion you get at work or whatever. It's just that you're worthy. And people are like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Hmm.
Like where does that come from? And so, like I don't know, what's your answer to that question as a therapist? Like I have my own answer, but
You're worthy because you simply exist.
right.
Because everybody is worthy. I mean, I can resonate with the philosophy that you're talking about, and I think when it comes down to it, even cosmically, that's the real deal. Is
Mhm.
that we matter just because we exist. We don't have to perform our personalities in a specific way in order to feel good about ourselves, but we're humans, and I don't believe that humans on the whole can sort of evolve into this place where they can practice non-attachment to their
Mm.
ego or ego death. I think maybe like a very small percentage of people have the privilege of doing that, or
Mhm.
have the neural pathways in order to do it, or the time to do that, or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So since we can't become enlightened, because then how would the world even rotate?
Mm.
We might as well just go for the second best thing, which is your feelings matter, babe.
Yeah, but maybe they're not mutually exclusive. Like I don't know if anyone like what does ego death even mean?
Are you able to expand on that? Because I know that when I want to have a really spiritual experience,
Uh-huh.
I am that tech bro.
Yeah.
Just like, give me ego death, babe. I have not experienced that. I know for some reason I want that because I put that up on some sort of pedestal, but I don't completely know what it means.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of the tech bros know what it means either.
Yeah.
I think that there is a kind of, I mean, even all the Buddhist literature that I've read, it's like the short version is like complete freedom from the suffering of sickness, old age, death, and change, right? Like that the fact that we live in the world where these things happen causes us suffering. And because we become attached to people and things and we
Mhm.
want them and we like them and we have cravings and we have things we like and don't like, and this means that the world is never quite the way we want it to be.
Mhm.
And I think that, and I don't know that, I don't quite know what ego death looks like, but I think that there are some people who are closer to the idea of like it doesn't matter, like the way, so I can't remember who said this, but he said, I don't mind what happens, period.
Mhm.
Right? Like I just, whatever happens is going to happen, and I'm not invested in it happening any particular
I
way.
bet that dude never got laid.
Maybe, but like, that would be, I think for some people, like asceticism is like a practice, right? Or chastity is a
Yeah,
practice.
that guy's an incel for sure. Mhm.
Maybe, yeah.
No,
And
but I get what you mean. I understand what you're saying.
yeah, I mean, and there is data of like these like spiritual guru guys who like grow up in monasteries and then they come to the US and they like, abuse women and have sex scandals and do drugs and
Yeah.
all these things, right? Because they haven't actually worked through all the stuff. But all that's to say that, like, I think that in my own experience, it's just this sense of like maintaining a sense of self is so exhausting. It's just like, particularly when that sense of self is, I have to be a certain kind of person. I have to show up in the world in a certain kind of way. I need people to think certain things about me. I have to be good in these particular ways. I've got to be this kind of person, that kind of, I need to be seen in particular ways. And we are reflected back in the eyes of others all the time. And we're constantly reinventing in our own minds this image of ourselves. Like I think every time we think about like something on our to-do list, it's like, oh, I have to do that so I can be this kind of person in the world. Right. And that just, like I said, it's exhausting. And I think the reason people do psychedelics or, light deprivation or whatever, like, thing that they're going to do is so that they can just take a break from needing to be a certain kind of person, right? Or showing up in a certain kind of way. And it's not an ego, death per se, but it's sort of like a pause in caring about it so damn much. And I think that if we can cultivate that in our everyday lives, we'll probably be better off.
Yeah, it's reminding me of a time where in my mid-20s, I was fantasizing about joining a monastery.
Yeah, you said that.
And just being like, fuck it all. And my only relationship is going to be with my higher self or God or whatever is the universe. And I would try to practice ego death or non-attachment to the ego or personality. There is something that sounds so liberating and so freeing from being attached to all the outcomes and caring so much and being let down and being on this roller coaster. I think a lot of that was fueled by some existential depression and not knowing where my place was or feeling like I, didn't have a strong sense of self. There was, I had to decide before I moved to Oregon. I also think I've told this story before, but before I moved to Oregon and I lived in Los Angeles, I saw a psychic who was amazing. And this psychic, side note, specialized in talking to people that were in comas.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So she would go to the hospital and talk to people in comas and say, are you going to come back or do you want your family to unplug? Give us an update. And then she would relay that information to the family and the doctors, and they would make decisions based off of her conversations with coma victims. So she was the real deal. And I saw her 4 or 5 times, and she told me that I was not going to live in Los Angeles and I was going to move soon. Where am I going to move? I'm moving to the Pacific Northwest. And she told me to go to Oregon and take pictures of the different places that I went to in Oregon. And then I had to get those pictures developed and show them to her. And the 2 places that I was thinking of moving was Portland, Oregon, where, spoiler alert, that's where I still live. Or Corvallis, Oregon. Do you remember this? Corvallis is, there's nothing there. Yeah. There is a college there. So it's kind of a small college town, but it's real sleepy, not much to do. And she looked at the pictures of Corvallis and she said, this is where you spiritually will grow and you won't be connected to many people there, but you will meditate and you will practice, non-attachment, all this stuff.
This will be your monastery.
That will be my monastery. Or you can go to Portland, Oregon, where you'll find friends and find community and you'll be a therapist and you'll have a good time, but you won't be as spiritual.
Well, you'll become internet famous someday. And
yes.
Here you are.
And I chose Portland, but there was a part of me that really regretted not choosing Corvallis / a monastery somewhere else. And that's what I thought would be the because I feel like I couldn't find myself, then I would just leave myself. I would detach from myself,
Mm.
and that would solve my problem.
Mhm.
But I ended up coming to Portland and finding community and yada yada yada. And I love my life here, and I love my friends here, and it's going really well for me when it comes to just like being happy
Mhm.
in this place, in this life. And that's because I decided to kind of go into, I'm just going to step into myself and figure out like, who am I outside of my childhood home and
Mhm.
childhood city? I went to lots of therapy, and it got me in touch with myself authentically. Which I don't even like using that word authentically, even though I use that in my book. Go buy
Mm.
my book. It's out now. Uh,
It's very pretty. It's got his face on the cover.
it does, yes. So there was something about stepping into my authenticity and being just 100% me, whatever that means. And that is what healed my depression or
Mm.
sadness or feelings of
Mhm.
lost, and I think, or of loss. And there's also just sort of, this is what's peddled a lot of the times in therapy school.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm. Right.
and
Have more robust connections, more robust
right.
projects, like
Hmm.
find something that you like to do and then do it and do it, like put
Right.
your whole like build a sense of self.
Yes.
Yes.
And there is Maslow's hierarchy. And at the very top, it's something like
Self-actualization.
self-actualization,
Yeah.
right? But whoever gets to the very top, and then you're there, up there alone. It sounds like such a
Yeah.
lonely existence,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think it can be. I mean, yeah. So I had a million thoughts and
Okay.
they're all competing for which to come out first. Um, yeah, I think it can be a really lonely experience. Because it's like I went to a meditation retreat. So my version of this is like I'm going to go and live my life, and then like once a year I'm going to like go in the woods for a week and do the kind of spiritual
Mm-hmm.
seeking. And one of the last retreats I went on, the teacher was talking about how there is kind of this two goals in the meditation practice that she was teaching. One is transformation of the self, and the other was transcendence of the self. And that's sort of what we're talking about here, right? Like, are we trying to transform or are we trying to transcend?
Mm-hmm.
And for her, it was like both goals could be pursued simultaneously. On the one hand, you can transform the self by talking about, by healing all of that stuff from childhood and saying, like, oh, I don't have to tell myself the same stories that I did when I was a kid, when I
Mm-hmm.
blamed everything on myself because my caretakers didn't fulfill all my
Mm-hmm.
needs. And that is great. And it's helpful. And it helps you kind of like do the things you want to do in the world and have the relationships you want to have. And at the same time, the transcendence of the self, I think, can happen when it's like it's a weird paradox. It's like that idea of worthiness, right? That like you matter just because you exist, I think is a kind of transcendent type thought,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's at the same time, it's the foundation for transformation, right? It's like if you're going to be able to tell yourself a story that you do matter and that you are worthy, the source of that worthiness, you can either get it from like your friends and your projects and your achievements and your gold stars, or you can get it just from the fact that you exist, or from a bigger source, or from a kind of spiritual understanding of your being in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that like if you get it from the gold stars, you're just replacing one one problematic story with a story that's maybe less problematic, but
Like
still
there better be more gold stars where that came from. You're constantly collecting gold stars in order
right.
to feel like you matter and you're worthy. Yeah.
Exactly. And then what happens when things don't work out, when the project doesn't go the way you wanted, or your friend moves
That's where your
away?
strong sense of self really has to thrive. Whereas I am not defined by my failures or my
Right.
imperfections, and I'm learning a lot in this situation, and it's going to help me be stronger in order to get the gold stars. I see what I know what I sound like right now.
Well, it's people who talk about like, oh, well, you need to rest because we all need self-care, but it's so that you can be more productive later.
Right.
Right. Like
Yes.
maybe you don't have to be more productive later. Maybe you can just be the way you are, and that's okay.
But you're saying the way you are, as in you don't matter, and we're worthy just because. I think we can all. Most people are going to agree with you. You are worthy just because you exist. But I don't know the path towards that,
Yeah.
like actually realized in my being.
Yeah.
That's a really cool concept that I probably don't fully understand. It's like imagining infinity.
Yeah, yeah.
Whoa! But my brain will blow up if you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Or I'm going to have to literally do Zen Buddhism, ego death, where I'm battling my personality until it's all chopped up and it's gone so that nothing else exists. It mentally, emotionally, no.
I don't think it's battling. I think it's more of like it's a letting go and a grieving process.
But when you're letting it go, isn't it trying to not be let go? Like, isn't
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, like the
it
ego
wants to
doesn't
exist.
That's right.
You're gonna have to battle.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the best word, but I do think it's not a horrible way to describe it.
Well, I think that it's like that's one way of looking at it. It's just like because then the ego becomes a problem, right? Like every assertion that the ego makes about its own importance becomes a problem, even if it's like, look, I wrote a book, it's so great, like right. And then it's like, oh well, that's just my ego trying to like fluff itself up and like exist in a certain way. I think for me personally, the way that access point to like I matter just because I exist, it has been through a kind of like embodied meditation process, but I can tell a little story.
Okay.
It is it's a Buddhist story, and it's about the Buddha's enlightenment. So before he became enlightened, Siddhartha was a prince that was trying to, or he prophet, a psychic came and like when he was a baby and
it's
said,
just like me,
just like you.
I like this story.
Said, this child will either be a king of kings or a sage of sages, just like Jeff.
Portland or Corvallis, same thing.
Same thing,
Yeah.
exactly. And his father, who was a king, was like, what do you mean a sage of sages? Like he's going to be a king. So in order to protect this legacy of his child, he did everything possible to give him every comfort of life, right? And the story, it's like he went to such extremes. The servants even like plucked wilting petals off the flowers so that he would never have to experience decay or death, right? He grows up his whole life inside the palace grounds. He gets married. He has a child. He's never really like seen the real world until one day he decides he wants to go out into the city, and his chariot driver takes him out. And he goes out into the city and he sees a very sick man who is like, he's a leper. And so he's covered in all these sores and he looks really bad. And Siddhartha is like, what is with this guy? And his chariot driver's like, oh, well, he's sick. And he's like, that looks awful. Could that happen to me? And his driver's like, well, I mean, it could. Yeah. And he's like, that sounds terrible. Goes home. He's very distraught. But of course, the next day he's got to go out again. He goes out the next day and he sees this time a very old man. He says, what's with, hunched over, walking with a cane, looks really like in pain. Oh my God, what's with this person? Well, he's really old. Could that ever happen to me? Well, yeah. If you're lucky, it could happen to you. This is terrible. Goes home, distraught. Third day goes out again. This time he sees a corpse. Same thing. Could this happen to me? His driver says, well, yeah. I mean, you might avoid sickness and you might avoid old age, but no one can escape death. Siddhartha goes home. He is having full-on existential meltdown, right? Like, cannot be. How can anyone be happy ever in this world? Goes out the fourth day. This time he sees a man who looks so peaceful and serene. And he turns to his driver and says, does this guy know about sickness, old age, and death? His driver says, like, yes, he's a sadhu. He's a renunciate. He's given up everything to go, like, pursue spiritual liberation in the forest. So Siddhartha goes home and he's like, that's it. I'm out. Peace. I'm going to go become a monk, right? So he leaves his family. He goes into the forest. He studies with the best, most, experienced gurus of the day for 6 years. And he reaches all these states of bliss and meditation, but he never really gets free of this suffering. He never experiences that full on like liberation. And in the process, he swings so far from that comfort, that life of comfort, to where he's like eating a single grain of rice a day and wearing itchy
Right.
clothes and sleeping on the ground and, like really self-deprivation. And he's not doing well. So one day he drinks a bowl of milk. He gets a bowl of milk in his begging bowl. And it's sort of like he comes to and he's like, this is dumb. I'm sitting down under this tree. I'm not going to move until I find ultimate liberation. So he gets visited by the god Mara. And Mara is, when I first read this story in college, the author characterized Mara as the god of death. And Mara, it does this kind of like last temptation thing where he says like, give up this search. I'll give you virgins, or, like go back to your family. Why are you doing this? Right. Sort of this kind of trying to dissuade Siddhartha. And in the original version that I read, Mara as the god of death, the ultimate temptation, he shows Siddhartha his true face, like the true face of death. And Siddhartha reaches down and touches the ground as if to like say ashes to ashes, like we don't matter, and he becomes enlightened. And I had always read that as like, that means that we need to just sort of stay like equanimous and calm and centered in the face of suffering, and that's how we will achieve liberation. Well, it was only a few years ago that I read a different version of the story that I think helped me get to this idea of you matter just because you exist. And this version of the story, Mara is a god of craving, and he gives Siddhartha the same kinds of temptations, but the last temptation is not the true face of death. Instead, he asks him a question, and he says, who will witness you? You have left your family, you have left your teachers, you are alone, you are near death. Even if you achieve spiritual fulfillment and enlightenment and liberation, who is going to witness you? And Siddhartha reaches down toward the earth and he says, this earth will witness me. And he touches the ground, and that's when he becomes enlightened. And for me, that is my access point to that idea that you matter just because you're here. Like the earth will witness you, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, no matter who you have around or what you achieve. Like, you are here and you matter just as much as the next person or the flowers or the tree or anything. And that if you can make contact with that, then you will feel like you don't need a strong sense of self, right? Because it doesn't matter.
I feel like we should end the podcast here. You win. Yeah, I like that sort of second version, or that slightly different way to look at it. And when you're telling me that story, it's really resonating. It feels true. It feels right. It feels good in my heart and in my soul. And I just agree with like that I feel like I could also I'm going to remember that story and use it as a guiding light, hopefully. That is my intention. And it seems like it's had a powerful effect on you.
Yeah, it's changed my life.
The issue is that I'm thrown back into the world constantly, over and over and over again. And it feels like building the strong sense of self and whatever therapeutic lens I'm talking about is just the easiest way to go. It's still hard, but it's not as spiritually complicated as, I don't know. It's spiritually complicated and not complicated at the same time, like that story, but it feels so far away. And it feels like a really interesting theory that I don't know how to embody. I'm not saying, I want to continue thinking about that and trying to figure out how to integrate that in the Jeff version way of my life in order to find more peace and liberation. And I don't have faith because Instagram,
right?
Or
Right.
because I want to
Right.
live in this nice house, and so that means I have to make money or
Right.
something.
Right.
The
Yeah.
worldly bullshit of it all
Hmm.
feels so distracting, and I've allowed myself to I lose. The
Hmm.
distractions win.
Hmm.
The whatever it is, capitalism, or I want my mom to love me, or it's such strong embedded shit generationally or in my DNA that I'm being reinforced every day. So,
Yeah.
yes to you and to that story. And
Yeah.
also how unrealistic. I don't want to set myself up
Hmm.
for failure. I'm not going to be able to read. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, we're all going to fail. Like, of course, like again, like you said, I don't know who actually ever gets there,
Hmm.
right? But the Buddhist way is sometimes called the middle path, right? And
Hmm.
it's because of this story acts as a metaphor, right? In his childhood, he was really attached to worldly comforts, right? And then in this ascetic period, he was really detached to the point of like deprivation. And what the Buddha discovered was like, actually, we want to take a middle path. So I don't think that, and I'm not advocating for like, sell the house, go live in a shack, and like don't. I'm not saying go join a monastery,
Hmm.
right? You can still like have the house and have the Instagram account and like do the things, but the question becomes why? Why are you doing them? Are you doing them because it's giving you a sense of your own worthiness as a human, your existential value? Or are you doing them because they're fun and you're here? And like, this is just the world that we fucking live in. So you got to participate in,
No, yeah,
you
I'm not
know?
doing any of this because it's fun.
Right. Right. It's
But
so hard.
yes, that's the fear though, is that if I keep on asking myself that good question of why am I doing this,
Hmm.
I'm going to keep on going further, further, further down to whatever the truth is
Hmm.
that sounds like it could be maybe liberating, but also could be really scary. Or I don't want to admit to myself
Hmm.
that I'm doing it for all of these gold stars that
Hmm.
are
Hmm.
peeling off my refrigerator anyways. Who cares?
Right.
Um, yeah, I'm interested in the resistance that I'm having right now.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
Because I think it's just coming from a place of this sounds good but not realistic. But you're saying but I keep on taking it to an extreme.
Yeah.
When there is a middle path, I need to do more thinking about what that middle path would look like. The problem is I just want to be either this or that.
Right. Right.
And the middle path sounds like a compromise that I don't really want to make. When maybe that's the way, though. I
Well,
don't
right.
know.
I mean, because this is the idea of I want this or that is like I want stability. I want to know where I am. I want to know
Hmm.
what ground is underneath my feet,
Right.
right? Like I want to have a strong sense of self of where
Hmm.
I am, right? And it's like this quote by this Buddhist teacher named Chogyam Trungpa where he says, "The bad news is you're falling. Nothing to grab onto, no parachute. The good news is there's no ground." Which is like, first time I heard that, I was like, what?
Yeah,
That's not good
that doesn't.
news.
No,
That's not comforting at all.
I'm falling for infinity.
Yes.
Nope.
Right. But like the point is that like, look, there is no ground. Like those are inventions in our mind and we're never going to achieve those either. Right. Like you can never be the perfect Instagram star. There's
Hmm.
like, you're always going to fail at that too. Right.
Hmm.
Or you're never going to be like the perfect spiritual monk, and once you start doing that you're actually wrapped up in your ego anyway,
Hmm.
right? So it's like it's like a thinning, right? Like Tina Rasmussen was a meditation teacher I studied with, and she talks about like the thinning of the me. She said it's like a sense of self that becomes thinner and thinner as you do this work. And it's not like immediately like you have a, mushroom trip and like you wake up and you're like, oh, that did it. I'm fine now. I no longer care about my
Hmm.
image. It doesn't work that way. Like, of course, we all do that because maybe it's part of the human condition. Maybe it's part of our cultural raising. I don't know where that need comes from. But I think that the goal is simply to walk in the direction of caring less about it. And that's the best we can do.
Here's another like thing that I struggle with is that a lot of things that I do, I fully believe that I'm doing for fun and for creativity, for, Therapy Jeff. When I started that 3 years ago, that was in the middle of the pandemic. I was bored. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't need to start posting online, but I thought it was going to be a fun, creative challenge, and it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was feeling so fulfilled. It was really exciting to continue to challenge myself to come up with content. I was creating community on TikTok and Instagram. And I did it for a full year before I was thinking of how can I monetize this. And then I did monetize it, and it was giving me more money than I'd ever made in any other previous year of my life. So I was like, oh my God, what an
Mm-hmm.
amazing bonus for doing something that I truly love to do. And I'm changing lives. I am, Danielle. Don't laugh at that. And uh and then I'm writing this book, yada yada, the book comes out, and I start to feel all of these emotions, discover all of these emotions that are tied up in Therapy Jeff and this book, which is really just poor baby Jeff
Mm-hmm.
wants his mother to love him.
Mm-hmm.
And that is 90% of probably why I'm doing this,
Right.
and so now I'm just like, then fuck it. Like every time I try to do something that's creative and fun. And so that's why there's a part of me that's skeptical of continuing to go down that path of how can I just do something that really resonates with me? Again, what a privilege to be able to make that choice. We need to acknowledge that.
Mm-hmm.
But still, in a vacuum, if I could do that,
Mm-hmm.
I've done that, I don't know, 100 times already in my life. And it's always because
And by that, you mean like trying to do the thing that gets mom's love?
do the thing that gets mom's love, do the thing that gets my dad's love, do the thing that makes my sister respect me
Right.
or something. Be seen by
Yeah.
family or whoever that I feel like I'm lacking.
Right. Who's going to witness you?
Yes.
Right.
It's those people that I need to witness me,
Yeah.
apparently.
Right.
And I keep on falling into that trap. So this sounds like it'll set me free. I've come around. But I don't know why I'm doing you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think I'm doing the thing for the right, whatever
Yes.
the right
Yes.
reason is.
Yes.
But it turns out I'm just a human
Yeah.
who wants his mom to love him.
Yeah.
How sad and sweet
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and pathetic and of course
Yeah.
about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that like that kind of compassionate version of like, that's actually a good and wonderful thing to want and need. Like
Mhm.
that it comes from a good place. We all want love and connection because that's what humans do.
Mhm.
And so I think for me, like, again, using that's sort of the transform part, right? Is like being able to see that part of the story and saying like, oh, I'm doing it again. I'm
Mhm.
doing it. There's a pattern here, right? And then like noticing it and working through it and doing something different or abstaining or talking to yourself about it differently or telling yourself a different story about what's happening. That's all the like transform part. And in so doing, I think that you are able to kind of get some distance from your self, right? From your sense of self. There's like, you're able to see yourself as telling a story rather than identifying with the story. And the more you can see yourself as telling a story, the more you realize like the story is actually kind of made up by you, right? Whether it's like, I mean, I have my own version of this too, right? Like I had a baby and had a like total mental health crisis afterwards and was shattered and then like made a whole career out of it where I was like, oh no, I'm going to tell this story and it's going to be a part of my identity. And like, I've got to make it a thing that is like, makes me feel worthy. But that also is just like an invention that I'm making, right? The whole thing is like, I just want to feel good. I just want to feel loved. I just want to feel seen, as we all do. And so it's like, well, we all run around trying to do this in so many ways and they're never going to fucking work out. They're really not. Like, and you just like keep doing, and they may feel good for a little while, and you may feel like you get positive feedback from the like comments on TikTok for a while or whatever it might be. You get a good book review or, and you have that kind of like your ego feels satisfied. but it never lasts.
Mm-hmm.
It never lasts. And that's one of the like fundamental teachings of Buddhism is like nothing ever lasts. There's no ground. It's
Mm-hmm.
you're always falling. You're always changing. And so like your only option is just to surrender to the fall.
Or put a patchwork of community around me of people that love me and I love them and I feel like I matter in their eyes and they're in my, you know.
Yeah. And I think that that's good, but I
Right.
don't think ultimately like
Okay.
people die.
Yes.
Things change, right?
Yes.
Someone moves away.
Mhm.
You know, like you have a falling out. Like those relationships are good and important. And yes, we are social beings, and I'm not like a solipsist there. I think that we are all like independent from each other. Like we are in community and connection. Those things are important. But at the same time, like the world changes and people change. And if that community is where you get your sense of self, even if it feels like if it's the most supportive, wonderful, affirming community in the whole world, like, you know, those communes have like there's always conflict, right? Like
Right.
the utopias never work out because there's always some political blow up or someone sleeps with someone or whatever it is, right? It's not going to be the thing that makes you feel ultimately worthy in a way that feels freeing and
Mhm.
liberating. And I think it's like when you get to that point where you can say, it does not matter who witnesses me because this earth witnesses me. And, you know, I've talked with clients and sometimes I tell that story and they're just like, I don't know, thinking about the earth is too triggering right now because
Sure.
of the way that we are like, you know, the planet is. For me, it works because it just feels like, I mean, this planet is my home. That seems unequivocally true, and it keeps me alive and it sustains me and it connects me. Anyone and anything I've ever known or loved is here, right, on this planet. And so for me, it really works. But if that's not your thing, then figure out what your access point is. You know, I had another client who said she actually really connected with the moon. She felt like she had a really strong connection with the moon. Some people have like, you know, maybe it's God or some sort of like spiritual or source or the universe or whatever sort of like new age version of that you have. Whatever it might be, there's some sense of like the unity of our existence here that you are a part of. You are not separate from ever,
Mhm.
ever. And so there's no reason to earn its love because you're never without it. I don't know. I'm sounding really like like pastoral.
Yeah.
Should be on the pulpit with the congregation.
I mean, I'm really enjoying it. I love what you're saying, and I think that a lot of people are listening and can resonate with what you're saying. The thing is that like it's the human condition that's like holding me back from it or something, and I think that I think that it's Earth. I think that like I can resonate with Earth. But I wish that Earth like could hug me. Yeah. I wish I could feel its love in a different sort of way.
Well, Tara Brach, Buddhist teacher, says that it is hugging you because the gentle hug of gravity is pulling you toward the planet at all times. You know, I mean, I think that part of like, of course, we all just want to be held. And that is, for me, like the way to access that is really through my imagination, like imagining being held, right? Mm-hmm. Like imagining a big caretaker taking me in slap and just holding me and really letting my body feel that as much as possible. But I think for some people, like you can get that feeling by walking in the woods or being near the ocean or, you know, like, digging in your garden or having a kind of like connection with, and I really do think it like there is something really deeply healing about the earth itself. When we are digging in the dirt, like there's bacteria in the dirt that releases the love hormone in our brains, right? Oxytocin, like the chemical that makes us love and connect. And like we literally have evolved to be in love with the planet.
I just wish it wasn't so dirty.
There are bugs.
There's bugs. You're either too hot, you're too cold. Nature is dirty. We're gonna stop there and let people absorb this. I think that I need to move to Corvallis. Thank you so much for coming on the pod.
It was so fun. I loved our conversation. Thank you for having
Always
me.
good to see you. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.